All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. If you're attending, come on in. So we don't have a lot of time today because of the fact that Maghrib gallops backwards in the beginning of fall to the point where we lose track of how quickly it kind of moves. So this week, I'll kind of start by or maybe I'll say at the beginning, I'll say at the end as well. I think, so my plan was to switch this timing for the halaqah once they switch the time in November. But I feel I'm going to have to do it earlier because I just don't have any more slots for me to fit it in. I can't fit it in anywhere. We can't do it before Maghrib anymore because Maghrib is 7:17, so next week it'll be 7:10, and it'll just keep on going backwards until basically we can't start. And I think starting 6 o'clock for a lot of you may not work, is what I got from kind of asking different groups of individuals. It doesn't really work well for me either because I barely make it home, eat. Sometimes I can't even eat. I have to come here if it's going to be 6 o'clock. So a better way of doing this is kind of doing it on a different night and doing it a bit later, like after Isha, so around 9. So we do it from maybe 9 to 10. I know that's a little bit late, but that won't be like that. It'll be just maybe 4 sessions like that. Like the 4 sessions in October, it'll be 9 to 10, and then, or even kind of getting earlier. So start 9 to 10, it'll become 8:50 to 9:50, etc. And then in November, we'll just keep it after Isha, and Isha is 8 o'clock, like or 7:45. All throughout the winter. Isha is 7:45, so we'll start at 8 o'clock almost exactly, from 8 to 9. So that's kind of what I feel it's going to be. It's going to be a different day, though. I can't keep it on Tuesdays because we have other stuff that run on Tuesdays during those slots, so we'll have to move it to Monday. The timing will become Monday after Isha, starting this coming week. Starting this Monday, we'll have it after Isha from basically, it'll go from 9 to 10, essentially. For 4 sessions, that'll be the case. It'll be a little bit late. And then right after they switch the time, it'll go back to become 8 to 9 the same night. Because Isha will be basically an hour later. It'll be the same time as far as the stars and the sun is concerned. It's just like on your phone, it'll look differently because they played with the hour, which is still a very ridiculous thing that we do in this country, but that's how it is. So that's the plan moving forward. I'll repeat this inshallah at the end for those who weren't here. Because I feel like the attendance is changing a little bit because of the fact that this is just too early within the day for most people to be able to attend. And even for me, it's not ideal. All right, so we have maybe 40 minutes left or so. Within those 40 minutes, do I have a clicker? I want to I'll do a quick review of this last topic, and then inshallah I will. Does it work? Okay, good. I'll complete it because I didn't actually complete it. I didn't finish it last week. Or actually, let's finish it first, then we'll do a review. So here's the question that I asked. I pointed out this. So this is like one of the khutbahs, one of the most repeated khutbahs that I've given. I've given this same khutbah like many times. Maybe not the same naming, but the same idea was in it multiple times over the last maybe 9 to 10 years. Shirk, obviously you understand what shirk is associating someone else with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what I pointed out is that this is the only thing in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is He won't forgive, right? Everything else He said He'll forgive, but this one He won't. Which is why Tawheed has the high status that it does, right? So shirk is obviously a huge problem if you come to Yawm al-Qiyamah with that, meaning if you come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where you equalize something to Him, either directly by saying that I believe that there's more than one God, or there's other associates, or there whatever it is, whatever belief that is inappropriate, or which is another scary part, we come Yawm al-Qiyamah with shirk, but not the direct, abrupt form, the indirect form, the form that I talked about over the last few weeks, where I told you what Tawheed actually is for the source of your values and your ethics and your major concepts and your principles in life. The source of all of these is one. If you have multiple sources, if it's not just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is technically that is an act of shirk, even though it may not be coming out that way. But technically that's kind of what you're doing, or what we're doing here. Now whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will treat them equally or not Yawm al-Qiyamah, I honestly am not sure. I hope that inshallah He doesn't, but it's a problem if He does. So shirk, we can all kind of get on board saying, yeah, that's a big problem Yawm al-Qiyamah, you can. But what do I mean by bankruptcy? This here is referring to a known hadith that, okay, I don't have it up here. Then I'll narrate it to you. So here's the hadith in the collection of Imam Muslim. So here, listen to this hadith and you'll know when I say what I mean. The Prophet ﷺ asks Sahaba, who is the bankrupt one? Man al-muflis. So they say the one who has no dirham or dinar, the one who has no money. That's the bankrupt one. So he asks again, every time they answer the same way, and he keeps on asking, and they don't change their answer. So he corrects it. فَقَالَ الْمُفْلِسُ من يأتي يوم القيامة بصلاة وصيام وزكاة وحج وجهاد. He said, is the person who comes يوم القيامة and they prayed and they fast and they paid zakah and they've done hajj and they've done all the stuff that you're supposed to do in terms of making it to Jannah. ويأتي وقد ضرب هذا وشتم هذا وأكل مال هذا وسفك دم هذا وهتك عرض هذا. They come يوم القيامة and they've hit this person, mistreated this person, gossiped about this person, taken the wealth of that person, harmed the integrity of the other person, spilled the blood of this person. They come يوم القيامة, there's a lot of harm. فيأخذ هذا من حسناته وهذا من حسناته. And then these people who this person has harmed will come and take from this person's hasanat. حتى تفنى حسناته, until there's no more hasanat to take from. فَيُلْقُونَ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِم. And then the people whom he owes will come, they have no hasanat to take, so they start shoveling off from their sayyi'at upon this person. فَتُلْقَى عَلَيْهِ سَيِّئَاتُهُمْ ثُمَّ يُلْقَى فِي النَّارِ. And then all whatever he owes in terms of in equivalency of sayyi'at is thrown upon this person is thrown into Jahannam. And this is a very scary and a very real hadith. And this is called the bankrupt one, Yawm al-Qiyamah. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, there's two ways to lose Yawm al-Qiyamah. Right? There are two forms of losing Yawm al-Qiyamah. There's shirk, which is an issue of mentality, how you live. And then there's this one, the bankruptcy one. Now I want to give you these. Which one is correct here? So the way that it came out, unfortunately, because I have a silly computer. So it's la imana. Oh my God. Wow. All right, so yeah, the one down here works, so we'll use these ones. I don't know why this one didn't work out. For some reason, my PowerPoint doesn't seem to like Arabic at all. But we can use the ones down here. So which one is it? Is it la ahda liman la dina lah? Or is it la dina liman la ahda lah? So is it those who have no religion do not keep their covenants? Or is it those who do not keep their covenants are not truly religious? Which one is it? In English, it's kind of easier to figure out. In Arabic, it's much more difficult. So whoever thinks it's this one over here, put your hand up. All right, what about this one over here? La dina. There you go. Yeah, you got it right. So that's the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ narrated to by Imam Ahmad and Bara al-Bazzar Abu Ya'la. La imana liman la amanata lah. Meaning those who are not trustworthy are not truly faithful. Wa la dina liman la ahda lah. Those who do not keep their covenants are not truly religious. The reason I bring this up is because it's a problem if you look at things in the opposite lens. The opposite lens is not what the deen explained. If someone doesn't have a faith, doesn't mean that this person is not trustworthy. If someone doesn't have religion, doesn't mean that this person cannot keep their covenants. It's the opposite. If you can't keep your covenants, and if you're not trustworthy, then you can't walk around claiming that you're religious or that you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that understand? Like, you can't do that. People do it all the time, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ is explaining that you're not allowed to do that. This is not something that's acceptable. If you're not able to keep your covenants, if you're not someone who is trustworthy, then you're basically not really religious, even if you act like you are. Even if you have a very long lihya and a very nice turban, and no matter how you dress, if you can't keep up these things, if you're not someone who knows how to deal with specific ethics, then you don't really have faith. And this is the problem that I think is that we have. There are two ways to lose Yawm al-Qiyamah. This is the hadith, so I have it in the second slide, I forgot. إن المفلس من أمتي يوم القيامة من يأتي بصلاة وصيام وزكاة ويأتي وقد شتم هذا وقذف هذا وأكل مال هذا وسفك دم هذا وضرب هذا. The bankrupt person Yawm al-Qiyamah is the one who comes with all the good deeds but mistreated people, and they end up with nothing. They can't make it to Jannah. There are two ways to lose. There are two big losers Yawm al-Qiyamah. Those who come with shirk, with the lack of belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the appropriate way, not having what we had talked about in terms of what Tawheed actually is, and those who come and they've harmed people. They've harmed people heavily. So this is important, because sometimes we look at Tawheed and we say, well, as long as you say La ilaha, as long as you say the word, then you're good. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you do. And that's untrue. Islamically, that's untrue. Meaning, see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, as far as I'm concerned with you, like my relationship with you, I'll forgive everything but shirk. So don't come to me with shirk and I will forgive you. For what? But when it comes to harming people, you see, Allah doesn't forgive the rights of people. People have to forgive the rights of people. Understand the difference here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafoor Rahim. He is very forgiving and very merciful. People aren't. Right? People are not. You and I, we're not. You harm me, it sticks with me. For the majority of my life, You can end up harming me in ways you didn't even imagine. Yawm al-Qiyamah, when you're standing there and you've harmed me, I'm going to come for my right. I'm going to come and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to serve justice. Now you've figured out everything and you see that you have just enough hasanat and you just make it to Jannah, and then you find out, you remember, oh my God, there's this thing here. If I just forgave you, then everything will be fine. But that's hard to get. If you're in a situation where you just need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive one thing between you and Him to make it, most likely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. Most likely, as long as it's not shirk. That's what He's explaining. That if it stands, if your status Yawm al-Qiyamah is waiting on one act of forgiveness and it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's not shirk, you're probably going to make it. But what about people? You see, when you stole something, there are two crimes that happened. You broke the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, don't steal. He'll forgive that, most likely. But what about the person whose wealth you took? What about them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't forgive their part. They have to forgive their part. And he said it's an issue of, it's not that He can't, it's an issue of justice. If I have a son and you harm that son of mine, then I may forgive you because you harmed my son. But my son has to forgive. I can't forgive you on his behalf. It's just not how things work. The person has to, you owe that person has to actually forgive you or let it go. Most people aren't very forgiving Yawm al-Qiyamah, which takes me back to the red lines. One of the red lines in the deen is harm. Yeah? One of the red lines that we have that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has drawn for us is harm. Don't harm people. As long as you haven't harmed people, you are most likely going to be okay. As long as you come Yawm al-Qiyamah and you don't have blood on your hands, and you don't have the integrity and the wealth and the dignity of human beings on your hands that you have taken away or mistreated, then if you don't have shirk, you're pretty good. There's two big things. Don't come with shirk, don't come with harm. Come with one of those two things, and you're most likely going to be stuck for a very, very long time. And the likelihood of you making it to where you're hoping to go is very low. The likelihood is low. You may. I'm not saying it's impossible. Obviously, I'm not the judge Yawm al-Qiyamah, but I'm just giving you the warning and the information that harm is just another way to lose. So we talk, because the problem with this, and the reason I'm saying this, just so you understand, is that if I gave you two scenarios of two types of people, what did I put after this? Okay. The two types of people that I can make you think about is someone who comes Yawm al-Qiyamah and they believe in idols. And then someone comes Yawm al-Qiyamah and they have, they've embezzled a lot of money. Which one is more likely to go to Jahannam? So the way that we kind of understand things is that, definitely the mushrik is 100% going, the other person. What I'm trying to tell you is basically both have a pretty bad odds that day. Both have pretty bad odds. The mushrik definitely, but what about the other one? What about if there's a Muslim who comes Yawm al-Qiyamah and has basically just oppressed people in the thousands? What's going to happen then? This is not for you and I to pass judgment upon others. But we're saying this for you, and I'm saying this for you and for myself, so that we make sure that we make it Yawm al-Qiyamah without these things. But if you come Yawm al-Qiyamah, we're Muslim and we're muwahhid and all that, but we have oppressed people in the dozens or in the thousands, whatever. What do you think is going to happen? This is the point that I'm trying to make here. Do not, and coming to that, and I didn't add that to this, to this talk, but maybe you have a little bit of time, I can point it out to you. That what is the threshold of harm, like in Islam? What do we consider as harm, right? Because if you're like, this is concerning. I understand Tawheed, and I'm going to live my life following the values and ethics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put forward. He is my only source. I'm not going to allow that to change ever again. My ethics aren't going to be variable, nor my values, nor my principles. But then one of those ethics and values and principles is that you don't do any harm. Now, why am I saying this? Because this is extremely important. Because this is almost as important as not coming with shirk. It's not maybe equally important, but it's a high number two. It's a very close number two in importance. That you don't come Yawm al-Qiyamah with, that's why the Prophet ﷺ would say, أول ما يقضى يوم القيامة بين الناس الدماء. The first thing that needs to be settled, the first scores that have to be settled Yawm al-Qiyamah is blood. And blood, what it means in Islam is not just murder, but any form of harm. Right? Whether it's physical blood that was spilled or figurative. When you harm me, you're spilling my blood, even if you're not doing it, even if physically blood is not hitting the ground. So why is this? Because we have to understand what the threshold of harm in the Quran is. Now there's a very, very nice, simple, short surah that you all have memorized as children. You have no issues with it all. He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Hams wal lams. These are very simple. You know what hams and lams is? It's when you and I have eye contact in the mockery of someone else. When they didn't and they don't even notice. That's what hams and lams is. It's either I give you a little bit of a, and then you look at the person and we smirk. Or even without that, I just look at you and you understand what I mean, and we exchange a laugh on the expense of someone else who is behaving funny, looking funny, doing something. We're not laughing with them, we're laughing at them, right? Now that person probably didn't even know that this happened. This person doesn't even know that it happened, so it doesn't really harm them, right? Technically, am I not right? They didn't know. They didn't know. They didn't see it. They walked through, and you and I exchanged a moment. We laughed for a second. That was the end of it. وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Warned them of severe punishment, everyone who performs these actions. And that is I'm not going to, you go read the rest of the surah on your own. But that's the message in the surah. Right there, right at the beginning, very clear. This is the most simple act of harm that you can imagine, where the person didn't even see it, didn't even witness it, they didn't experience it, they didn't feel anything. If you ask the person, were you hurt by fulan and fulan? Why? What did they do? He didn't even see it. Right? So it's not, you didn't actually even, they didn't even know about it, and still, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. They will be punished. Where? فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. In the destroyer. What did it destroy? التي تطلع على الأفئدة. The one that will destroy the consciousness, meaning your feelings. You hurt feelings, that's what's going to happen. There's a place in Jahannam that will burn feelings specifically. Not even flesh. It'll be the feelings and the ego and the consciousness that will be in pain. This is how Islam goes. And you say, well, they didn't know, it doesn't count. Abasa wa tawalla. Did you see the Quran talking about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? The Prophet alayhi salam for a split second frowned when he saw Ibn Maktoum coming his way and knew that he was going to have to leave what he was doing and go speak to him. He was in the middle of a discussion, a very productive discussion with the leaders of Quraysh. He was getting close to maybe even pinpointing them and cornering them. And he saw Ibn Maktoum coming calling, so he was like, I have to go to him now. Just for a split second, Abbas, he frowned for a second. The guy is blind, he didn't even see it. The guy was blind, he didn't see it. It didn't hurt him. The only way Ibn Maktoum knew that this happened was the Quran came. Ibn Maktoum found out what happened when he was standing in Aisha behind the Prophet, and the Prophet was reading Abasa wa tawalla and ja'ahu al-a'ma. He didn't know. He had no idea this happened. So you can't say, well, if they don't know about it, it does. The Prophet ﷺ was spoken to in the Quran in a surah, was going to be recited until Yawm al-Qiyamah, that you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have frowned. But Ya Rabb, I was frowning for a noble reason. I was trying to serve people who were close to becoming Islam, and he didn't see it. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a noble reason. It doesn't matter if you didn't see it. You don't do that. Period. You don't frown people. Period. Understanding? This is the threshold of harm. This is the threshold of harm that we live by. Humazatil lumaza or abasa wa tawalla. Use whatever example that actually resonates with you and think about, and that's the threshold of harm. And that's why I brought this up. Between shirk and bankruptcy, there are two ways to lose. Two ways to lose. Whether you come with shirk or you come with bankrupt because you've harmed too many people. Both Yawm al-Qiyamah will get 0 on their exam card. Their exam report will be a failure for both. So yes, you have to make sure you come Yawm al-Qiyamah with Tawheed, but just to make sure you're clear, you have to also make sure that you make it there without human harm, or harm in general to any living thing. The Prophet ﷺ, the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim would say, عُذِّبَتْ امْرَأَةٌ فِي هِرَّةٍ حبستها لا أطعمتها ولا سقتها ولا تركتها تأكل من خشاش الأرض فدخلت بها النار. There's a lady who took a cat and took it captive or put it into a cage or something. She didn't feed it, didn't give it water, didn't let it go to eat. The cat died, and this lady was punished Yawm al-Qiyamah in Jahannam because of it. Harm. Any form, doesn't have to be a human being, any form of harm. You'll be held accountable for that Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this is what's important to me, for you to understand, because as valuable and as profound and as deep as the concept of Tawheed is, I hope I was able to bring that across for you. You have to understand that there's another side, the flip side of the coin. Your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are things you have to be clear upon, but then with your relationship with people, be very careful. Be very careful. Muslims, true Muslims, do not harm people. They just don't harm people. And those are the points I wanted to kind of cover regarding this topic. I think I jogged through this a little bit. This is an important question. This comes up a lot. Where are the Yahud going? Where are the Nasara going? Where are the Hindus going? We don't know. We don't answer that question. We don't have an answer for that question. What we do is we come to people and say, look, if you are mushrik, this is what Allah is saying. If you are performing this act of sin, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in punishment. Here's how you make it to Jannah. The Quran is there for explanation, for indhar and tabshir. You come and you give a warning and you give good tidings of reward. You don't use it to tell people where they're going. You don't use it to actually point fingers at people and explain to them or to generalize on full populations that this population altogether is going altogether into Jahannam. That's not we don't have the ability to do that. We don't, and that's not what the Quran is here for, and that's not what Islam is trying to explain to you. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does to people Yawm al-Qiyamah is completely up to Him. He does whatever He wants, Jalla Jalaluhu. It's actually extremely arrogant of me or anyone to actually act like we know where people are going, because you don't even know where you're going, for us to actually point out where people are going. Al-Kufr leads to Jahannam. Acts of kufr will lead to Jahannam. Al-Kafir in general will be punished. Now, whether this kafir or these kuffar specifically go or not, that's a different story. That's not the same. This linear logic doesn't work. They're not the same thing. And I know it sounds like, well, no, this is very important. That linear logic that we use doesn't apply when we talk about something like this. You can't say, well, a kafir goes to Jahannam and fulan is a kafir. Thus, fulan, no, that doesn't work. You can't, that's not how this logic does not add up that way. That's not what this is for. That's why the Quran was sent, to bring a warning, to bring good tidings, to remind people, to encourage people. That's what it's here for. It's not here to turn into a catalog where we cast judgment upon others. And the reason, just so you understand how that works, is because of this little. The categories of people Yawm al-Qiyamah is different than the categories in dunya. So the Muslim in dunya and the kafir in dunya, that's judged based on face value. Whatever it is that they do, whatever that they claim they are, right? Whatever they claim to be, whatever they're showing me is what they are. I have no idea, no ability to actually say anything else. If someone comes and said, I believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, that's it, they're Muslim. What they actually feel on the inside and what, that's not, I can't judge that. That's why the word nifaq is big, right? The word of hypocrisy is a huge word, because it's saying that the person is acting on the outside different than what they're feeling or thinking on the inside. So Hudhayf ibn al-Yaman, the one Sahabi who knew the names of all of the hypocrites, he would say, there's a hadith in Bukhari, he would say, إِنَّمَا كَانَ النِّفَاقُ عَلَى عَهْدِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. Exclusively, the ability to call someone munafiq was during the time of the Prophet. أَمَّا الْيَوْمِ فَمُسْلِمٌ وَكَافِرٌ. Today it's either a Muslim or a kafir. Someone who says they're Muslim, so they're Muslim, or someone who says they're not, so they're not. Kafir is not basically a curse word. I'm a kafir in regards to a Jew or a Christian or a Buddhist, right? I don't believe in what they believe in, so to them I'm a kafir, just like they are to me. It means I don't believe in what they believe in. It's as simple as that. So in dunya, we have categories. We have Muslim, we have kafir. We can't say where people are going. We just say Muslims go here and kafirs go here. Here's what you need to know. Where these people specifically, in these groups specifically, I don't know, because Yawm al-Qiyamah is a different categorization. You have mu'min al-akhirah, Muslim al-akhirah, and kafir al-akhirah, which is different. That's based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows of what they actually believed. And a number of other elements that we may not be able to take into consideration in dunya. There are those who never actually heard anything about faith. They can't be treated as someone who refused Islam when it was presented to them properly. Those who had Islam presented to them improperly, inappropriately, in a way where it's impossible for them to believe in. There's a lot of different categories of human beings that will make it Yawm al-Qiyamah, and categories that won't. And the categorization Yawm al-Qiyamah is based on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine knowledge. In dunya, we're going by face value. Just whatever it is you claim to be, that's fine by me. I don't need to I don't need to dig any deeper beside more than what you actually tell us. So it's very important to understand that Yawm al-Qiyamah, the categorization shifts, goes into something different. It's based on a lot of other elements and a lot of other issues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about that we don't. All right. So to sum up quickly. So it all comes down to one thing. It comes down to your source of values and ethics. This is what Tawheed is. La ilaha illallah, when you're saying it, this is what you're actually claiming. You're saying that my source of values and ethics, my red lines, all come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not change. Those red lines don't change. And in conclusion, as a Muslim, my ethics don't change. I know exactly who I am and what I represent, and I stick to it. I'm in it for the long run. I'm not variable. I'm not changing because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't change His rulings around or His ethics and principles and values. What does, and this is very important to me, that you understand that a constant source is constant ethics and behaviors, and variable or multiple sources will have variable ethics and behaviors. If you have a lot of people, that's why two parents in a home with a child, if they don't have the exact same message, the kid doesn't grow up very well. Doesn't get raised too well if every parent is giving a completely different messaging to the child of what's okay. It's not like it has to be the same. It has to be the constant messaging to make sure we have constant ethics and behaviors. The Quran says, ضرب الله مثلا رجلا فيه شركاء متشاكسون ورجلا سلما لرجل هل يستويان مثلا. Allah gives an example of someone who works for multiple bosses and one person who works for one boss. Are they the same? I mean, do they enjoy a similar quality of life? Are they able to actually figure out what they're supposed to do? The person who has one boss, it's one message. They just follow that message. It's clear. The one who has multiple people telling them what to do, they're going to get lost. And if they're all saying the same thing, then you didn't need to have multiple bosses. You could just have one. What's the point of having five and they're saying exact same thing at the same time? Then that's a waste of time. One would be enough. So no matter how you think about it, it's really only one source that you can actually end up living, unless we're looking for corruption. Unless we always want to kind of push things a little bit, change things a little bit. We just want things to suit us instead of actually being. It's very important that you see the difference between rulings, laws, and jurisprudent practices and values and ethics and behaviors. They're different. And that's why it's important as a young Muslim that you learn. You take some i'tiqad, you study like a text of aqeedah to understand what your belief system is. You study fiqh so you understand what fiqh is. You study akhlaq and suluk and tazkiyah so you understand what your ethics and your values are. And you differentiate between these three categories so they're clear to you that they're not the same. That not everything has to be treated the same way. Those who can't differentiate between these things, don't see a difference between an aspect of tertiary fiqh, like a hukum, a ruling of fiqh that scholars have differed upon for a very long time, and a value, end up doing one of two things. End up either becoming extremely strict across the board, so everything becomes a line that cannot change, meaning there's only one way to do it. And you've seen that, you know Muslims who don't even accept there being more than one opinion in an aspect of wudu, for example, or salah. Everyone has to do it. There's only one way to do it. And where does that come from? That comes from this poor person wasn't able to differentiate between what are the values and principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave, which we have to have tawheed towards, and we have to be very clear that we don't change them, and what are aspects of jurisprudence where we go look at the evidence, we interpret, we understand it to the best of our ability, and you end up with a couple of different opinions. You can choose between which one makes sense to you. These couldn't differentiate, so they become very strict. Or they say this whole thing is a mess and they don't do anything. They stop respecting all red lines. And that comes from lack of knowledge, really, which is why we're doing these things. You have to know the difference. You have to know the difference. You have to be able. I haven't talked about fiqh at all in all of these mentorship sessions, not once. Everything I've shared with you, all of the concepts so far, none of them are fiqhi concepts. They're not issues of. We'll talk about some fiqhi issues at the end, just to make your practical life a bit easier. But really that's not the point here. The point is that you become extremely clear on what your principles and basic beliefs and values and virtues are. And once you become clear on those, everything else will just fall in place. Everything will become much easier as time progresses. And you'll be able to figure it out because you have the compass. You know what you actually stand for and what makes sense to you. But this is a big problem. And I've seen too many issues arise from it, where we just don't see the difference between them. And if you're like, well, I don't know the difference, well, that's where you have to go and ask. That's where you have to learn and pursue some knowledge and actually come to those who know and ask, well, what is this? Right? You can't treat haircuts like being honest. They can't be the same. Because they're not. This is an issue of fiqh. This is a value. Honesty, without honesty, what's left? If you're okay with lying to yourself or to others or to Allah, then nothing's really left in the world. It doesn't matter what you do. Do what you want. It doesn't matter. If you've lost that basic value and virtue. So if you're fighting all over these other details, but you've lost that one, you understand what I'm saying? You have to know the priorities. These virtues here, no, these aren't, you don't mess with this stuff. We can't play around with that stuff. That's why Yawm al-Qiyamah, someone who with a little bit of Tawheed, never harming someone and just praying the basics, and didn't fall into the big capital sins, those are the big winners, Yawm al-Din. You don't have to have, you don't need all the fancy stuff around it. They don't have to be an Imam of Taraweeh and great voice in the Quran. Just come Yawm al-Qiyamah with Tawheed, with clarity on that one. Make sure you have the basic rituals. You never harmed anyone in your life, and you stayed away from the capital sins, which is the big virtues and ethics that you shouldn't cross, and then you're safe. You're safe. You'll be fine. It's not that complicated. It wasn't made to be that complicated, but sometimes I think the human race likes complicating things. We're very good at that. All right. So that's really the message of this fifth topic. So this is the fifth topic. I still have 2 or 3 more major topics to go through. What I've talked about so far, here's the breakdown of what we went through. We went through the fundamental principle. We talked about iqra. And then we talked after that about activism and passivity or indifference. We talked after that about stewardship and service. We talked after that about jihad. And this is the fifth one, Tawheed. And these aren't issues of jurisprudence. These are basic values, and this is what Islam was built upon. These are the building bricks of what Islam actually is. Without any one of these, just remove any of them. Just remove any random one. Just remove the concept of qiyam or activism. Just remove the idea of service. Just take away a mentality of iqra and the ethics that come with that. And everything just comes crumbling down and crashing. No matter how well we're practicing the little stuff, no matter how well the rituals are perfected in the way that we dress and the words that we use and the way that we look. These things have to be there first. And that's why talking about them is important. That's why we've had these discussions in groups. The goal for them was that you took time to actually listen to it and think about it, maybe even say something about it moving forward. We still have a few more that I want to go through that are going to be similar. Once we're done, then we'll kind of take a step back and we'll go through, we'll do a general revision. We may ask for some contribution. Take these topics and give me something. Tell me how that's going to be a bit different for you. And then we figure out. Because really as a mentor in the future, you don't need to be able to answer the question, well, what did the scholars say about the issue of tamattu' bil hajj and qiran, and I want to go do umrah. What is all this? You don't have to know those stuff. It's nice. It'll be awesome if you did. This is my goal for you, inshallah. My hope is that you actually do talab ilm and you understand your deen and you know how to talk about the rituals. But as a mentor, you don't need to know all that stuff. Now, what you need to know are these basic things. So the person in front of you knows what values and they're going to adhere to, what basic principles that they need to stay observant of for the rest as they move forward with their lives. That's what matters. There's always going to be an alim or a faqih somewhere that you can go out to and say, I don't know, what do I do about my wudu? I have a cast on or something. Someone can give you the answer how to go by that. You don't necessarily have to have that, but you have to be able to explain that, look, if you live without jihad, meaning if you don't know how to prioritize what's important, what's not important, what you need to strive towards, what you should be willing to live and die for, and what you should continuously be working towards at every moment in your life, and understand that that's a state of mind and heart that you should be in, nothing really matters anymore. Islam turns into a part-time job or a membership that you plug in whenever you want. You come in whenever you feel you have time, or things are going well for you, or it's Eid, or it's Ramadan or something. And it doesn't work. Islam doesn't function that way. And the reason that we're doing this is because, look, Islam worked really, really well for the earlier generations. Really well. It's transformed a complete nation from one state to the other. Moved them from being people who lacked organization, lacked good behaviors to a certain degree, lacked the ability to dream big, lacked proper creed, lacked the ability to come together, lacked good ethics, and it transformed them to a nation that basically led the world for a very long time, and led the world without a lot of the resources that most countries that led the world had back then and even today. They just led with an idea. They were very rich with the ideas and the concepts that they understood and that they lived by. And what happened to Islam or Muslims is that slowly, which is one of the upcoming topics, it was reduced. It was slowly taken away. And in order for us to go back, you have to reclaim those things again. Just reclaim these words, reclaim these concepts and values, live them again, and then you'll see Islam will do for you what it did for Umar ibn al-Khattab and Hamza and Khalid and Mus'ab and the names that we all know, and Nusayba and Fatima and Aisha. What this did for them will do the same thing for you. And Islam will kind of exist differently in the world again. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And there'll be more, inshallah, follow-up. There'll be follow-up to all of these didactic lectures that we're talking about. Today I didn't really make any cases because I didn't really want it to be based on cases. I need you to do a revision until next week, or until I see you next week, over the 5 topics that we've done. Abu Ali and I talked about assignments, and I don't want to make this into a homework. Like it's not. My goal here is not that you have an extra assignment to do for school or for university, but I do want you to take time and think about them. Maybe jot them down, the 5 topics that we've talked about. Think about them and go through maybe issues that really meant something to you. So that next time, inshallah, we can have a little bit more of a discussion. I do want to do a revision of these 5 first before I move on to what comes next, because what comes next is a little bit more practical. There'll be a bit more behavioral modifiers or modifications that we'll talk about in terms of how we can take the next steps. But these are basic concepts that we all should learn. I said it at the beginning of the halaqah today, because we started today maybe 6:10 until people kind of came in, and Maghrib is or 6:40, and Maghrib is 9:17. We can't do it at 6:30 anymore. We only have like maybe 40 minutes or 45 minutes moving forward. 6 o'clock is too early, I think, for most people. I don't think most of you can make it at 6. I can barely make it at 6. I can maybe make it at 6, but I have to come right from the hospital. What I want to do is I want to switch the day and switch the time. So we do a modification of day and time. Now I was going to do this in November once the time once they did the daytime saving, and Isha is a bit earlier. So Isha will be like 7:45 in November. So we basically start right at 8, and 8 to 9 would be perfect. But we may have to stomach October. And October has been notoriously, October and April, throughout my time in Masajid, are 2 months that are just very, very difficult. They're just hard because the sun just keeps on running. It just, Maghrib and Isha and Fajr just keep on running, and I can't keep up with them, and you can't seem to organize anything around them anymore. And it just becomes a little bit of a difficult issue. It's just those 2 months. So October is going to be a little bit of a headache. So we're going to change the day and the time. It'll be a little bit late. So it'll be Monday, but it'll be after Isha. So it'll be around from 9 to 10. So it'll be an hour from 9 to 10. Now, the majority of all of you, mashallah, the majority of the audience is not young or not children, so we should be able to stomach that for the next maybe 4 weeks. It's just 4 weeks in a row, yes? No, and not because I don't want to negotiate. It's because I don't have any slots yet left. Sheikh Ma'an and I almost start punching each other. So Monday was Monday. That's it. I can't play with that. I have other things on Thursday. Other things are running on Wednesday. On the weekends, I have things that are running. Just too many things that are running at once. So it's hard for me to really do anything outside of specific days of the week. It'll become much easier once they change the time. Once we go into November 7th, it'll be 8 o'clock. From 8 to 9, I think, is very reasonable. So maybe, and even like the second week of October, things will, because Isha is going backwards very quickly. So if Isha is 8:35 today, next week it'll be 8:28, it'll be 8:17, like it'll start, we won't go over 10 o'clock, we won't hit 10. Like we'll finish, it won't be 10 o'clock for all of the 4 sessions that will happen in October, or maybe the first one of November as well. But I think it should be something we can reasonably do. The only alternative is that we just postpone. We just stop and pause this for 4 weeks, which I don't think is a good idea. I think we should continue having these sessions. But I do want to make sure I have time. Like today, if I want to put in a case, I don't know how I'm going to fit it in 40 minutes. It's not going to be fair to you or to me. So I decided without cases. But next time, if we do it after Isha, I have a little bit more, like I'm not worrying about time as much. Go ahead. It's after Isha, yeah, so Isha will keep on moving backwards. The more it moves backwards, the better for us, because we keep on starting a bit earlier, and I don't want to, like it's not, I work, by the way, in the mornings, so 10 o'clock is not good for me either, like I'm not happy with it. But honestly, it's the only alternative that I have right now. Let's at least aim for that this coming Monday. I'll ask maybe Abu Ali to put in. We can put in a doodle, and I can have everybody who's attending put in choose from certain times. If I feel there's a whopping majority saying one time that may be available, there's maybe 1 or 2 times that may be available. If I find that, then we'll go to it. Otherwise, we'll just stick to Monday after Isha. But definitely Monday after Isha will be the timing once they change it in November. Kind of set. I'm only giving this little bit of negotiation for October because October the timing is not it's not ideal for any of us. So we'll put that in. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So the plan is to do Monday after Isha.
Yeah.
Going forward, and then what about after the time change?
Stays after Isha, even after the time change. Yeah, Mondays. It'll stay Monday after Isha. Basically, if we make the switch next week and we stick to it for the next couple of weeks, then we'll go Monday after Isha, basically until after March. Yeah. Yeah. So starting November 6, Isha will become the Iqama will be 7:45 until basically March, until they change the time again, right? So Isha Adhan sometimes will be 6:15. We're going to pray Isha at 7:45. So I'll give a dars between the Adhan and the Iqama for Isha. But it doesn't matter because basically no one's going to be able to make it for Isha at 6:15 or 6:30. So we fix Isha at 7:45 from November 7th or 6th until March 12th, I think, when they change the time, which is right before Ramadan. So Isha will be basically a fixed time at 7:45, and that's when we'll do it. Every Monday, 7:45, we pray Isha, we do our halaqah. The only discussion I'm having with you right now is just regarding October. The next couple of weeks, because it's a little bit tricky. 6 is too early for most of you, and for me as well, I feel like it's not a good time. And after Isha is a bit too late, and after Maghrib we have too many things running. I can't just cancel people off and move them away. So what I came to is that maybe Monday after Isha. So just so that we have it planned out. So this Monday after Isha we'll run, and in the meantime we'll put a doodle in the group, and I'll take a look at it. If there is a whopping majority, we'll message saying we've changed the time to this. If not, I'm going to stick to Monday after Isha, even if it's not ideal for everyone here, because it's the only time that kind of works for us. Wallahu alam. Does that makes any questions at the end of that? Sorry about the little bit of a change, but we have to kind of work around some of the timings that we're forced to work around. All right, جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيكم.